the first most important decisions you will have to make when you've been arrested for a DUI after you've gotten out of jail is what you need to do regarding your driver's license. This is particularly concerning if you have refused the breath or blood or urine test that the police officer may have asked for. This is because the state of Georgia makes it very uncomfortable for you if you refuse this testing on the side of the road or at the police station. And the laws are set up to penalize you for refusing and essentially make it possible for the government to suspend your driver's license for at least a full year based upon that refusal. And this is very scary because most of my clients have no interest in having their driver's license suspended for a year. So figuring out what to do next can be scary, and the decision needs to be made usually within the first 30 days after your arrest. So when you've refused, you want to avoid the license suspension. Georgia has actually, in the last couple of years, offered an alternative to having a hearing and confronting and trying to challenge that suspension. And that alternative is that they now permit certain drivers to sign up and enroll in their ignition interlock device program. And essentially what that is that you have to go and install an ignition interlock device in your vehicle and provide proof of that to the Department of Driver Services before 30 days have expired since the date of the arrest. And if you do this, you will be permitted to drive without having your license suspended on the ignition interlock device. Now, why would somebody ever choose not to opt in to this ignition interlock device? Well, there are a couple of reasons. First of all, not everybody is eligible for this ignition interlock device. If you have been charged and convicted of a prior DUI, then you may not be eligible for this. Also, if you do not have a Georgia driver's license, you may not be eligible for that option. There are other, though, more strategic reasons to not opt in for this. The first one is that if you do elect to drive on an ignition interlock device and your case is later dismissed and the DUI charge is later dismissed, you are not going to be freed of that promise that you made to Department of Driver Services to drive on that ignition interlock device. Rather, you will have to continue driving on it for the full year. Now, this is a different consequence than if you chose the other path, which was challenging that license suspension and requesting a hearing. Now, that process is a little bit different, and you need to send in a letter within 30 days to the Department of Driver Services indicating that you are challenging the suspension, and then you will receive a hearing date. And that hearing date, you will have an opportunity to make your case to the judge. Now, sometimes you win that hearing because the officer does not show or for another legal reason, but sometimes you will lose that hearing, and if you lose that hearing, that license suspension will be imposed, and it's a year-long suspension. But here's the difference between the ignition interlock device and choosing to challenge that suspension, is if you go through with the hearing and you lose and your license is suspended, if you later in the criminal court win your case and the DUI is dismissed, then that suspension will be dismissed as well. And so you may only be suspended for a short period of time depending on where your court is. Choosing what to do and which path to take is a strategic decision, and you want to make sure you understand and consider your alternatives with enough time so that if you choose the ignition interlock device, you do not end up running out of time and you are able to install it in your vehicle and provide proof to the Department of Driver Services within the 30 days. One thing you do want to keep in mind is that the Department of Driver Services is closed on Mondays. So be careful when you're counting out your days. Make sure that that last day that you're counting on is not a Monday, because you will not be able to get helped on that day.